Sean Diddy Combs will be released from prison sooner than expected. The rapper, who is currently serving a 50-month sentence for prostitution-related charges, is now scheduled to be free.
The internet never stays quiet for long, but every once in a while a story explodes in a way that completely dominates the timeline.
The release date was initially set as May 8, 2028, when he was sentenced last year, but it was later pushed back 1 month to June 4, 2028. The 56-year-old remains at Fort Dix Federal Correctional Institution, a low-security prison located in New Jersey, after he was transferred from the New York Metropolitan Detention Center in late October. As for Combs' thoughts on his prison sentence, the rap mogul previously expressed remorse for his actions, telling the judge overseeing his case during his sentencing that his past behavior was, quote, disgusting, shameful, and sick. He stated, per NBC News, "I am not this larger-than-life person. I am just a human being. I was trying my best. I got lost in excess and lost in my ego. Because of my decision, I lost my freedom and the opportunity to raise my children and be there for my mother." Combs, a father of 7, added, "I have been humbled and broken to my core. I hate myself right now. I've been stripped down to nothing." He added through tears, "I will never jeopardize my family. No matter what anybody says, I know now I am truly sorry for it all."
The RICO conspiracy and sex trafficking his former girlfriends Cassie and the woman known in his trial as Jane. I saw and heard both these women testify myself, and let's just say some of their testimony, I don't know if I'll be able to get it out of my brain. But maybe what they testified to actually struck a chord with Diddy. According to a report by TMZ, their sources say Sean Combs enrolled himself into a STOP program at MTC Brooklyn. So what's the STOP program? It's a course for inmates with the focus of preventing sexual assault, domestic violence, and dating violence. Oh, and per those same reports, he's reportedly undergoing therapy and in a drug abuse program reportedly conducted by Dr. Harry X. Wexler. Now, during the trial, we heard a lot about drugs: ketamine, cocaine, weed, molly, shrooms, GHB, 2C, or pink cocaine. Federal prosecutors said previously drugs were a key ingredient for the freak-offs or hotel nights or wild king nights, whatever you want to call them. Meanwhile, the defense claimed Sean Combs struggled with drug addiction, and any drug use was just personal and for private use. And we heard testimony about the rampant drug use too, from Cassie and Jane, where they both claimed they couldn't go through freak-offs or hotel nights without drugs, to the many assistants like Mia or George Kaplan, or even Brendan Paul, where they observed Sean Combs doing drugs. Some even partook in drugs to prove their loyalty, or picked up drugs on Combs' behalf. Or the many of text messages shown about drug costs, reimbursements for drugs, etc. Then another theme that played throughout the trial was the excruciating amount of testimony about domestic violence, especially during Combs' relationship with Cassie. I mean, we all saw the Intercontinental Hotel surveillance tape. We heard the subsequent apology after portions of the footage were released publicly. But we also heard about violence toward Jane, and Combs' former assistant Mia, and Cassie's stylist Deontay, and Cassie's former best friend Carrie Morgan. The defense even owned up to the domestic violence many times during the trial, something even the judge used as part of the reason to keep Combs locked up pending sentencing. The judge said during the bond hearing, at trial the defense conceded defendants' violence in a personal relationship, saying it happened in relation to Cassie Ventura and Jane. Judge Subramanian even pointed out there was violent and illegal conduct even after the HSI raids on his homes, saying that this highlights a disregard for the rule of law and a propensity of violence. But according to the report by TMZ, their source says Combs wants to use their jail programs to better himself. But there are skeptics of Combs' motivation to do the programs now. Is it too little too late, or does this polish him up for the judge?
Right now, that is exactly what is happening again. For months the public believed this legal saga had already reached its most intense moment. People assumed the situation had settled into a slow legal process happening quietly behind courtroom doors. But suddenly everything changed. New rumors began spreading online suggesting that the central figure in this entire controversy might be released much sooner than anyone expected. The moment those whispers started circulating, the internet erupted. Within hours, social media was flooded with reactions. Some people were shocked by the possibility, others were angry, many simply did not believe it. And then there were those who claimed this outcome was inevitable from the very beginning, no matter where people stood. The same question kept appearing across every platform. How could a situation that seemed so serious suddenly shift toward the possibility of an early release? To understand why the reaction is so explosive, you have to understand the scale of the story itself. For years, the central figure in this situation built an empire that stretched across multiple.
Mark Agnifilo can say in court, "Look, Your Honor, my client did these programs. He wants to be a better man." I mean, I wouldn't put it past Mark Agnifilo to say that at the upcoming sentencing hearing. He said something along those lines of this when he was making arguments for Sean Combs to get bond after the verdict. Now, Combs reportedly started getting drug treatment before his arrest last year, even though the feds say he was found with drugs in his hotel room the night he was arrested. And Mark Agnifilo previously said Jane helped Diddy get into a batterers program before his ultimate arrest. We'll see if the self-work paid off, or if it's too little too late when Combs is ultimately sentenced in less than 3 months. Well, I'm joined now by trial attorney Adante Pointer. Adante, always great to see you. Is it no longer bad boy for life? What are your thoughts on these courses that Sean Combs is reportedly enrolled in? Are you buying that it's actually making him a better person, or do you think it's just trying to make him look better in front of the judge before sentencing?
Well, I think two things can be true at the same time. One is, yes, those courses are designed, they're instituted, they give inmates, if you will, access to those courses because the belief is those courses will help, a person's behavior and curb them from doing things that would find them in front of a judge. I also could see that serving a dual purpose. Second purpose being it makes you look much better in front of the judge. As I told all my clients, if you're doing things that the court can recognize that is actually helping you deal with the behavior that puts you in front of the judge in the first place. So here, violence against women, domestic violence is something that the courts is a big no-no in society as well as the court. And so I can see the fact that he's taking these classes being something that the judge will take into consideration during his sentencing. And on top of that, the drug class is the same thing because I believe, if I was Diddy's attorney and given the way the evidence came in, I'd certainly be like, look, these things happen during dark times where I was in a drug, induced haze to where I was doing and acting in ways that I am ashamed about now. But during that time, it was because drug, sex addiction, and things like that I'm now addressing.
Well, you actually kind of sound like Diddy's defense attorney, Mark Agnifilo, because he literally made essentially the exact same argument, especially during the bond hearing. But I'm curious to know, obviously there are skeptics of this where they think it's strictly just to look good, it's just for good press, all of that stuff. Yeah. But in your opinion, do you think that these courses are just too little too late? I mean, the defense was saying that he was trying to get help before, he was trying to get help to address his drug use previously, that Jane was helping him get into a batterers program. But do you think it's too little too late?
Well, it's too little too late for his victims, okay? But it's not too little too late for the rest of the people he's going to encounter while he continues to live out the rest of his life. And so you can't slam the door on redemption. You can't slam the door on someone trying to address destructive behavior. So I think, he does get some kudos for enrolling in the program and for the efforts he made prior to finding himself in federal court facing all of those charges. So I think it does go to his credit, but you're right. Critics and skeptics, sometimes they'll just never be satisfied. And for, well-founded reasons. When you have someone who has a documented history such as him and you see the videos and you hear the testimony.
Multiple industries. The image projected to the public was one of unstoppable success, expensive parties, powerful connections, massive business deals, and an influence that reached far beyond music or entertainment. Cameras followed every move and headlines celebrated every milestone. But that image began to fracture. At first it started quietly. A few accusations began appearing online. Rumors circulated behind the scenes. Stories from years earlier started resurfacing in comment sections and discussion forums. At first many people dismissed it as internet noise, the kind of speculation that appears around any high-profile celebrity. Then the volume increased. More claims appeared. More conversations started happening publicly. Old footage, old interviews, and old photographs began circulating across the internet as people tried to analyze every possible detail. The narrative shifted from admiration to suspicion almost overnight. Eventually the situation escalated into a full legal battle.
His problem goes deeper than a 30-day, program. Not that these programs are 30 days, but just to say it's going to take long-term and commitment to the long-term results in order for us to really have confidence that he's not going to engage in such disturbing behavior.
And it's interesting too, because I think the public reaction to this verdict was really kind of split down the middle. I was really thinking it was going to be one way. I was at the courthouse. It was a completely different kind of beast and animal that was going on after the verdict happened. There were people with the baby oil. It was a crazy day after the verdict happened. But I know some analysts were kind of comparing it to the O.J. Simpson verdict, but it seemed like the reaction was really kind of split down the middle. A lot of people upset with the jury's decision, but then there were a lot, surprisingly, celebrating the verdict. What are your thoughts?
Well, my entire time looking at the case, the charges, and listening, to the evidence as it came in during trial, I thought that depending upon how a person, be it a juror, be it the public, comes into the trial believing how someone who's a victim should act and how they believe relationships can evolve or devolve and fall apart is the lens that they would then make their verdict. Why I say that is because if you think a person who's battered, someone who's been a victim, someone who's been assaulted in the ways that were described, most people have an idea as to how they will respond and act towards that, or their expectation if it happened to their loved one, how they'd expect their loved one to act. And in those situations, you don't expect someone to be tweeting. You don't expect somebody to be sending texts telling their abuser that they love them or that they want more of what took place. However, there are other people who see it from maybe more so the lens of a victim or someone who's been abused, who would say, you know what? That's not so beyond the pale of reason, because the abuse has been so entrenched in this person's mind that they then fall in love with their abuser. And so that's not something that they would, look askance upon or look down upon. So, one of the things about being in trial that I always remind my clients, is that despite all the rules that the judge gives people, no one leaves their life experience or their opinions at the courthouse door. It all makes its way into the courtroom and ultimately into the jury room. And that's why you can see such people who are on one side, like celebrating Diddy being acquitted on the much more serious charges, and other people who are like, how did this happen? I am upset. I feel like victims did not get justice today.
Right, exactly. And emotions did run really high, especially when the verdict came down, because I think I myself was pretty surprised at some of the jury's decisions in relation to some of the charges where they found him not guilty. But, obviously they made their decision. They listened to the evidence. They saw all the exhibits, and they made the decision that they did. And say come sentencing that Sean Combs is sentenced to maybe a couple years behind bars in prison. But do you think even after this trial, after everything that we've learned, after the many civil lawsuits that were also...
Once the legal system became involved, the story transformed from online gossip into something far more serious. Court documents, statements from legal teams, and constant media coverage turned the controversy into a global headline. People who had never followed the story before suddenly found themselves watching every development. The public conversation became intense. Some people demanded accountability and transparency. They argued that powerful figures should never be immune from scrutiny. Others warned that accusations and rumors should not replace due process in a courtroom. The debate grew louder every week. As the legal process moved forward, many observers expected a long and complicated road ahead. High-profile cases often stretch for months or even years. Lawyers argue motions, evidence is examined, and the public waits while the legal machinery moves slowly behind closed doors. That is why the recent rumors created such a massive shockwave. When people began hearing that an early release might be possible, it felt like the entire narrative had suddenly changed direction.
Closing some of the things that you went through, because when something traumatic happens, who doesn't try to block it out of their memory? Who doesn't try to, try to get their head out of it or not process it the way that it's processed? But it seems like through this time period that she was really just trying to better herself around this time. This was a time where, again, she's already married to Alex Fine. She already has children, but it seems like she was finally like, okay, I'm seeking treatment for myself. And then that this trauma therapy really kind of exploded everything into her recounting just maybe all the things that she had went through that she thought were okay at the time and then realized they weren't.
And then it became a question of what does the prosecution do? There was so much discussion. Well, how's the prosecution going to arguably rehabilitate her testimony, right? The redirect was interesting because at one point she got emotional. You've talked to before, Elizabeth, how she was quite calm and cool and composed. Talk to us about what happened on redirect and also the moment when she actually got emotional.
Yeah, and there were a couple emotional points that she had during her redirect testimony. The government kind of coming back to kind of refocus everything in, where they essentially asked Cassie, about having to do these freak-offs while she was having a UTI, something that may kind of play into the force, fraud, and coercion. Cassie's messaging Diddy saying, I want to see you, but I'm an emotional wreck. I don't want to do it. They brought those messages back. The government asked, did you review every single report from the government, especially when they were, especially when the defense was kind of talking about her recounting what she told the government in something in April or in something in 2023. And Cassie had said she didn't review all those reports from the government or federal agents. The government asked her about the affectionate messages, and that Cassie admitted, that Diddy was kind and loving, but it always just didn't last. Cassie said that when he wasn't happy anymore, that it just affected everyone. That she being Cassie was affected by Diddy's moods. They affected her entire life, her career, her self-worth. And that's when, when she starts talking about just kind of, I think, reflecting on her self-image of herself, especially around that time that she was with Diddy, that she does get super emotional. She said that her work essentially would take a back seat to having to do these freak-offs. The government asking, what all does a freak-off entail? She said physical prep, getting supplies, contacting the escorts. And she essentially said that she hung on to every single word that Diddy had said, because remember, she was, 19 years old, still a teenager when she and Diddy had met. And so she said she was asked about Diddy opening up her world, and she said that it was kind of chaotic. She just essentially wanted approval. And the government asked, well, who do you want to have sex with? And she essentially said, Sean and Sean only, this during their 11-year relationship period. The government brought back the defense exhibit of the 2009 messages. The defense kept bringing up the 2009 messages, but even again, you're thinking of the time frame. It's when Diddy and Cassie were first together, and so of course they're a lot more loving, a lot more nurturing in nature and that sort. And Diddy asked Cassie, you're supposed to be seducing me. And Cassie said she kind of knew what this insinuated, that he just wanted to do a freak off. And so kind of when they were talking about the settlement and the financial situation, that's when she definitely started to get emotional, because during her cross-examination,
social media exploded with speculation almost immediately. Threads appeared analyzing legal technicalities. Commentators began discussing how such an outcome could theoretically happen. Others rejected the rumors completely, calling them nothing more than internet speculation. But speculation spreads quickly online. One post turns into 1,000 reposts. One rumor becomes a trending topic. And once millions of people start discussing the same possibility, the story takes on a life of its own. Clips from past events are circulating again across every platform. Old interviews are being re-examined frame by frame. Comment sections are filled with debates about influence, accountability, and the nature of celebrity power in the modern era. Some observers say the entire situation reveals how complicated fame really is. When someone becomes extremely successful, they do not just gain wealth or recognition. They also build networks of influence that reach deep into business, media, and cultural institutions. Others argue that
she was talking about around the time that she had filed her lawsuit, she was actually going to be going on tour, and going on tour in like Australia or New Zealand and that sort. And then she said she had canceled the tour, and they were essentially saying, oh, you canceled the tour because you got the financial payout. You didn't need to go on the tour anymore because your finances were already fixed. And then she said, no, she actually canceled the tour because she was overwhelmed after filing her civil claim. Again, that was settled a day after. She said that she was addressing the past and just didn't want to be away from her kids. And then the government asked, would you give all that money back if you never had to do a freak off? And that's when she started really getting emotional. She said that she just wanted agency and autonomy, because again, who wouldn't? I mean, it's your body, it's your choice. And then that the government was kind of honing in on the fact that Diddy was the one who initiated these freak-offs, whether or not she was on her UTI, whether or not he was beating her during these sessions. She said that she didn't matter to Diddy, that she kind of felt like nothing. And she said that she admitted, yes, she was open at the beginning, but then that kind of changed over time. And I think that also kind of plays into the whole consent issue. She said that once she was done with Sean Combs, that she didn't do any more freak-offs. And then she said that she had told Sean more than once that she didn't want to do these freak-offs. She said that she had worried for her safety, for her career, and worried that he just didn't want to be with her anymore. And I think that's why she kind of kept doing this, essentially just to make him happy, something that she had been very forthcoming about. But I also think, there were points that the government really kind of honed in on the fact that this might play into, count 2 of the forced fraud and coercion of sex trafficking, where she was doing these things. She didn't want to be doing these things. She told her partner she didn't want to be doing these things. And yet, according to Cassie, this just became like a job for her. She felt like a sex worker, but that part got struck from the record.
And talking finances, by the way, it also came out that she got a settlement from the Intercontinental Hotel. I don't believe we knew about that.
Yeah, I was honestly surprised that the defense attorneys didn't bring this up during their cross-examination during the first time. They actually brought it up during recross. Now, there's been a lot of rumors and speculation, especially even prior to trial beginning, about how much Cassie received from Diddy in that settlement payout just for her federal lawsuit, right? So I think it was very much a moment where a lot of us were just like, whoa, she got a settlement also from the Intercontinental Hotel. And again, this was something that the defense, Ana Maria Esteveo, brought up literally right before she got off the witness stand, where she was asked, did you get a settlement from Intercontinental Hotel? Because she was asked, do you have any more pending lawsuits or any more demands that you had made out for money? And Cassie said that they did reach settlement negotiations very recently. She said about either last week or last month or so, and it was for $10 million. And I think what the defense was trying to do, again, kind of painted out that she was just the reason for her wanting to do this was essentially for money or financial reasons. And I'm not sure how much of a sticking point that really was for jurors, but I was, again, kind of surprised that they didn't bring this up during the cross-examination. But maybe it was a point that this could be something that the jury just kind of left with, left with that impression of Cassie once she got off the witness stand.
I have a feeling that if the judge didn't impose the order that she had to finish up her testimony by the end of the week, this testimony would have gone well into Monday. But the judge wanted to make sure, she's pregnant.
Oh, yeah.
1 week down, make sure she leaves.
Digital age has fundamentally changed how these stories unfold. In the past, a powerful public figure could rely on traditional media filters to control the narrative. Today, that control is much weaker. Every person with a phone can publish information instantly. Every old video clip can resurface within seconds. Every rumor can spread across the world before official statements even appear. This new reality has created an environment where stories evolve at lightning speed. One moment the public believes a case is moving slowly through the legal system. The next moment a rumor appears suggesting a dramatic twist. Even if the rumor turns out to be inaccurate, the conversation it creates can still dominate the news cycle. That is exactly what is happening now. Supporters of the central figure argue that the legal process should be respected and that rumors should not be treated as confirmed facts. They believe that speculation often distorts the truth and unfairly damages reputations. Critics see the situation differently. They argue that powerful individuals have historically been able to navigate legal systems in ways that ordinary people cannot. For them, the idea of an early release raises uncomfortable questions about whether influence still plays a role behind the scenes. Between those two perspectives sits a large group of observers who simply want clarity. They want to know what is real and what is rumor. They want to understand how the legal system is actually handling the case. But clarity can be difficult when the internet moves this fast. Every hour new theories appear. Some claim inside sources are revealing hidden details. Others insist the rumors are completely fabricated. The truth becomes harder to separate from speculation as the noise grows louder. Meanwhile, the broader cultural conversation continues to expand. Watching the legal updates. Watching the social media debates. Watching the endless stream of theories trying to predict what will happen next. Some people believe the rumors will fade and the legal process will continue as expected. Others believe the whispers about an early release could signal a dramatic shift in the story. Only time will reveal which version of events is closer to reality. But one thing is already clear. The controversy surrounding this legal battle is far from over. If anything, the latest rumors have pushed the story into an entirely new phase. A phase where public curiosity is higher than ever and every development will be analyzed under an intense spotlight. Until the legal system provides a definitive answer, the speculation will keep spreading. The debates will keep intensifying. And the internet will continue doing what it does best, turning one complicated legal story into a massive global conversation that refuses to disappear.